Hi, I'm Johnny Russo. I just wrote my memoirs. It's called Hollywood Godfathers. It'll be released March 12th, 2019 by St. Martin's Press. I'm now approaching almost 75 years of age. I have a message to you out there. Anybody that was ever told you can't do something, I'm telling you you can, okay? I was always told you can't do this, you can't do that. In fact, in 1949, a doctor told me I can't walk and I may never walk again. It lasted 5 years. But in 1955, I started my first business. I was selling ballpoint pens up at the Upper East Side. They were the little miniature pens. They just came out. And the society women liked them because they fit in evening bags. Soon after that, I meet a guy called Frank Costello. He passed me every day on his way to the Waldorf. And every day he'd stop by and drop $1, $2, and never take a pen. And one day we started talking. He said, "Why are you doing this? Why don't you come work for me?" I said, "What would I do?" He said, "You be a messenger. You run around, do my errands." I said, "Okay." He says, "Tomorrow, meet me at the Waldorf under the clock at 11 o'clock. And I'm telling you, that was in 1957. I was with that guy until 1972. What I'm about to tell you, no one's ever heard. In 1958, I'm running errands for Costello, and a truant officer stops me on the street. He says, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 15. He says, "What school do you go to?" I said, "I don't go to school." So he gave me a ticket to give my mother and father. So I brought it to Costello at Toots Shores. He held court there every day with people like Frank Gifford and Joe DiMaggio and Toots himself, Jackie Gleason. I showed him the ticket. He said, "Give it to me, I'll take care of it." The next day, he says, "I enrolled you in Wilford Academy. It's on 52nd Street on top of Lindy's." I said, "I know what it is." I said, "I don't want to be a hairdresser." He said, "Just go there for 6 months until you're 16. Then you get out of there, don't worry about it." While I'm there, though, an assistant for Mark Sinclair comes, and they're looking for shampoo boys. Now, Mark Sinclair during those days was the hairdresser to the stars and society. He was even Jackie O's hairdresser at the time. So my teacher tells me, "Go over there. It counts as school credits, and you can make some tips." So the next day, I'm at Lily Daché. I can't believe it. A high society joint. Everybody in the world was going. The fourth head of hair I shampooed was Marilyn Monroe. I couldn't believe it. I'm 15 years old, and I'm looking at Marilyn Monroe laying in a shampoo basin. And Some Like It Hot just came out. This is the hottest woman in the world right now. John F. Kennedy announced in 1960 he was going to run for president. Joe Kennedy calls a meeting with Frank Costello. He needs all his bootlegging buddies and everybody else to help his son become president. Now I find myself traveling all over the United States. I go to New Orleans to see Carlos Marsalis. He's the head of the longshoremen's in New Orleans to Texas. We already had Anastasia up here for New York and Brooklyn and Jersey. Then I'm off to see Corky Savella. He's in Kansas City. He runs the Teamsters there. From there I go to Chicago and I see Tony Accardo and Joey Aiuppa. They had the film unions, they had Teamsters, Culinary Union. With everybody combined and Johnny Roselli on the West Coast, we all know John F. Kennedy became president. What we didn't know, Joe Kennedy made a deal with the mob. He said once his son was president, his son would invade Cuba and give them back their casinos. That never happened either. In 1962, the Kennedys were summoned to Cal Neva up in Lake Tahoe. It was a resort that was controlled by the mob. Sam Giancana had the bright idea that he would catch Bobby and Marilyn Monroe and John in bed together and film it, and this way he could blackmail them, and this way Bobby would lay off him. Because Bobby went after everybody. The mistake John made was made his brother Attorney General. Bobby hated all John's friends and Joe's father's associates. With that, the mob said, this is what we have to do. John never shows, they never get the film. August 5th, 1962, they find Marilyn Monroe dead 3 days after she left Cal Neva. And we all know who did that. In 1963, I'm now traveling all over the country again to the same people that elected JFK to see what
their votes were, and not knowing what the target was and not knowing what they were even voting on. I come back, I tell Frank that Carlos Masala says it's a go. He gives me an envelope and he says, "You're leaving on the Independence this Thursday." That's what he's talking about. He said, "Just get out of the country." He gives me an envelope. He says, "You're going to be having dinner every night at the captain's table. Buy a couple of tuxedos. Somebody's going to meet you in Barcelona." So I leave. I never questioned him. Now I'm on the Independence. The chief purser brings me up to Udick. I got a great suite. And I'm hearing kids out on the balcony. I go on the balcony and there's Grace Kelly. Now, I used to pick up Grace Kelly at the Barbizon on 63rd and Lexington Avenue and bring her to the Copa and to El Morocco to meet the guys. She loved hanging out with, with Earl Wilson, Bill Miller, and all those people, and Costello. So we reacquainted ourselves. So now we're going under the Verrazano Bridge, and they announce that JFK's been shot. He's not dead yet. So that night, we're at the captain's table having dinner. It was like a funeral. The whole dining room was quiet. The only compensation I had, that her and I were drinking and hanging out, there was nothing to do on the ship. Now it's 1968. Costello wants to see me at the Waldorf. I go there, and he says to me, "You got to go out west." I said, "For what?" He said, "I want you to see this guy, Johnny Roselli. You're going to meet him at Hollywood Park." So I go out, I set it up. He's at Hollywood Park in the clubhouse. I go up there, and he's with a guy called Sirhan. I give him an envelope from Costello, and I leave. I come back, just like Marcellus. He says, they got the go-ahead. We all know what Sirhan did. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel. So I guess that's the end of the Kennedy clan. Now I'm in Miami. They gave me some money. I opened a club called The Disc on the 79th Street Causeway. As it would be, Richard Nixon wins the Republican nomination with Spiro Agnew. They're looking for a place to have a party, so they come to my place. The interesting thing is, Nixon's mistress, Jackie Wilkinson, 20 years later becomes my mother-in-law. That's an interesting story. Now it's 1969. Mario Puzo releases a book called The Godfather. I always wanted to be an actor. I'm about 25, 26 years of age now. The good news, Joe Colombo was giving everybody a headache with the Italian Anti-Defamation League. I happen to know Joe. He was threatening to close down the whole film production. Now I know what he was doing. He was selling a buck a button all over the country. So I go see Joe. He had a headquarters on Madison Avenue. I said, "Joe, why don't you go up to the Gulf and Western building? I could arrange a meeting with Paramount, and let's sit down with them." He said, "You can make a fortune with this movie." He said, "How am I going to make any money with this?" I said, "You could sanction the film. We'll have Barry Schlotnick, who's his attorney, read the script. And whatever you don't like in it, they'll fix it. And then you'll ask for the world premiere of every movie in every major city the night before for the league. You could sell the tickets for $100 a pop." He said, "That's a great idea." I said, "Now what am I going to get?" He said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to play Michael, Sonny, or Carlo in the movie." So obviously I played Carlo. Now it's 1971. We start principal photography. I hook up with Brando. Nobody wants to talk to Brando. They're all afraid of him. I don't care. He's just a guy to me. We become friends, and he's my only acting teacher. Who could say his only acting teacher in the world was Marlon Brando? It's similar to Frank Sinatra being my only singing teacher. The stories that you're going to hear behind the scenes from all those actors is going to be amazing. 1972, we're at the St. Regis Hotel for the world premiere. I mean, people from every walk of life was there. Henry Kissinger was there. Andy Williams was the first time we heard the words to Speak Softly, Love. This is all part of my life. It's amazing. It's now 1976. I find myself in Rome with Nick Nitti and Joe Accardo. He introduces me to a pope, and 2 months later, the guy drops dead. So now I'm at his funeral. Then they elect this John Paul I. He's only a pope for 33 days. They kill him. Next is my good buddy now, I could say my life, but I knew him for a couple of years. I even traveled with him in the United States, John Paul II. who's now a saint. This was all orchestrated by a guy called Bishop Marcinkus. He was the head fiduciary for the Vatican money. And if you weren't cooperating with him and the mob, that's where they laundered all their money. 1978, I find myself at the White House. Now I'm friends with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter gives the Courageous Award to Dionne Warwick. I was managing Dionne Warwick at that time for 12 years. We've won already 3 or 4 Grammys and moving on. In 1980, I broke ground on a hotel. I did it on April Fool's Day, but I was the fool, it turned out to be, because I borrowed $72 million from Northrop Aviation. I break ground and I'm ready to put my footing and foundation. The Carter administration had the interest rates go up to 19%. Ernst & Young at that time were my accountants. They told me you have to pull the plug. You'd need 91% occupancy just to pay your debt. So I lost $3 million. Thank you, Jimmy Carter. The good news, in the winter of 1980, I opened a place called Johnny Russo State Street. I had Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis do all my ads before they did anybody's ads. It became the playground for the stars until the wee hours of the morning. It lasted 9 years. In 1988, a guy comes in. He's a high roller at Caesar's Palace. We had accounts with every hotel. He comes in, he drops all kinds of money. He goes into the casino, drops 4,000 or 5,000. He orders a bottle of Louis XIII and a bottle of Cristal. He has some kind of confrontation at his table. He breaks the bottle and sticks it right in the lady's face. Now, nobody wants to go help. I got to jump in. I go over and I said, pal, I want to declare myself. This is my place. Who are you with? He says, who you mean, Mon? So I knew he was not with any of my friends that are Italian. So I said, you got to leave. He says, I ain't leaving. I said, you got to leave. So he reaches for the girl. I said, you can't take the girl. She's injured. She's got to get help. With that, he turns around. I didn't realize he still had the bottle. He swings around and cuts my throat. So now I got the okay. Once you cut me, you're dead. I put 2 bullets right between his head and killed him. I didn't realize, though, that he was related to Pablo Escobar. Now I have to go down to Colombia. I got to see Pablo Escobar. He's threatening my family. When I come back, it's 1989. I said, you know what? Let's pull the plug on this place. I close it down. As luck would have it, I come back to New York. Donald Trump invites me to open up the Trump Marina down in Atlantic City. He throws a party for me you will not believe. I can't believe the guy became president. He's my 6th president that I know. I'm going to tell you about Bill Clinton and I in Double Bay, Australia. That's even more interesting. We're there for 5 days. It had a very sad ending. On the 5th day, we wake up. We're 23 hours ahead of you here. We wake up and it was 9/11. I never saw this before. Frogmen are coming down from helicopters on our balcony at the Ritz-Carlton, and they airlift the president and take him to Germany. I said, I got to get out of here too. They said, where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Italy. They dropped me off in Italy. I was there for 2 years. Now, these are just some of the stories you're going to experience by reading my book or listening to my book or even seeing it. We're going to have the first DVD book. But let me tell you something. Where I opened this, I said, to all of you out there that were told you can't, I was told I can't. And look what I did. Remember that.